My name's Ondine Bolt and I'm a student on the animal husbandry course here at College Cigar. Today I'm going to be looking at enclosure number 9, which houses the lesser Madagascar tenrec, and the scientific name is Echinops E.Telfairi. We'll be doing a health check, enclosure check and some basic first aid. So we've removed the animal from the enclosure so that we can have a good look around.
Small amount of either mealworms or locusts, but because there's not a lot of nutritional value in commercially bred insects or mealworms of this type, we would normally coat these with calcium powder. These don't appear to have been coated. There's a lot in there for that little animal to eat. Then we have like a cat biscuit, loads of this left over, so we might be wondering why it's not eaten so much, but the tenrec is nocturnal, so that could be why. It might be that in the morning that's all gone. Temperature's nice and warm in here. As I said, we've already removed the tenrec. Now I'm just going to go over and do a basic health check. Putting on some gloves, just to prevent any cross-contamination. I've also got on my scrubs. There we go. So tenrecs, as I said, are nocturnal. And they do go into torpor in the colder months of the year. So I'm not expecting this animal to be incredibly active because of the time of day. Just being careful to pick it up, not using a lot of force because it is such a tiny little animal, but I've got to carefully in my grip. So overall body condition of the animal, I sort of want to see these first, thinking what's happening, why am I out of my cage? She's somewhat curious. I'm saying she because it's been assumed from the breeder that it's a she. Now she's starting to sniff around and see what's going on. You might be able to see a milky secretion coming from her eyes. That is normal behavior. Study books say for male tenrecs. Not so sure if that's normal for females. We can see the nose. We start with the nose. Is sniffing, wondering what's going on. The whiskers are working. The ears are erect. Just going to have a look and see if there's any discharge evident in the ears. I don't see any. Are tiny ears. The nose is quite long and quite mobile, which is as it should be. And I'm going to see if we can look inside the mouth, because we have got quite a lot of food left. It's not too keen for that to happen. We're going to try and see inside the mouth. Yeah. The basic body condition. Of course, the animal is covered in spines, so it's hard to see the skin. But if we look into the skin and around the ears, we can see that the skin does appear to be quite dry. That can be as a result of the air in the enclosure not being humid enough and not enough moisture. And I did say earlier that the enclosure is quite hot, so it may just be too dry. With tenrecs, if their condition is not humid enough, they will get dry skin around the ears, on the feet and on the tail, and we can see the feet are quite dry as well. So that's something that I would recommend to be looked at with her enclosure. You can also see going down to the feet that the nails are very long. In fact, when I pulled her out of the enclosure, one of some set of the claws got caught on my jersey. So we're going to see if we might be able to trim her nails in a moment. And then moving back down the body, again, there don't appear to be any quills or spines missing from the tenrec. On the back feet, again, the nails are very long. The tail should also be covered in spines, which it is. Now, there's no easy way to sex a tenrec. I found two ways. Both are going to be referenced in my document. One is for a DNA swab in the mouth. You can sex them that way, so it's not quite as intrusive. Or the other way is through the rectum, cloaca, because it's this has a cloaca. So we need to look underneath just to make sure the animal isn't has no lesions underneath the body. And then actually, again, skin is very dry, but there are no lesions. I'm just going to give her a little break here now and set her down so we can wipe her. Willow is this animal's name, and she's around about 6 months old now. She was brought to the facility at 3 months old. Here we can see she is approximately 15 20 here to, I say 36. So is that 16 inches, centimeters long. And she weighs 0.16 of a kilogram. An animal fully grown, 130 to 200 grams, and she'd be 5 to 6.8 inches long. So for her age, she seems to be within normal age and weight and length ranges. Just going to scoop her up now. She gave a little charge to the camera, which is good. The last time she was weighed, she was 1.5 kilograms. So she has put on a little bit of weight and probably grown a little bit as well since I last saw her. So she seems to be growing quite nicely. And she's quite active. Let's just have a look at the underneath and see. We don't see any discharge there from the cloaca. So quite feisty now. She's been out for a while. So we're going to give her a little break and put her back into the house.
Small mammals such as the tenrec. First of all, I thought I'd go over some things we can do without getting the animal out of her enclosure. This is Pro C. This we would give to the animal if she seemed sluggish or was not eating. It's basically a prebiotic with vitamin C and glucose, so sugar and vitamins. So that should help pep her up a little bit. You would put that with the appropriate measurements on the back for an animal her weight and size, and it's soluble, so you put it in some water and see if she will drink it. If not, we have syringes for that type of thing, so you would just syringe it up into the carrier here and just squish it into the side of the animal's mouth. Always, of course, make sure your syringe is sterile, which is why I've not opened this one, but there are measurements on the side so you know exactly what millimeter dosage you're giving. The same here for this is called an emergency pack, and this is for the same sort of thing for animals that maybe haven't eaten for a couple of days, and we don't understand why. We would give them, again, it's soluble, so you would put it in some water, mix it up. Dosage recommendations are all on the back, and if this was not ingested, so you would again use the syringe because you want to make sure the animal gets this. If it's not ingested properly or if the animal doesn't show signs of getting better, then straight to the vet for an emergency visit. Now we're going to move on to the practical side of things. As we discussed earlier, the tenrec's claws were quite long, so we're going to have a go at trimming those today. And we'll also look at what we should do if the tenrec should get cut on its paw or on its nose. So, as mentioned earlier, the tenrec can be fed live locusts using the tongs to prevent injury, but sometimes that can, the locust may fight and she may still get a scratch on her nose. So if that was to happen, we would use a solution called F10, which is an antiseptic. So it prevents infection, and it will also clean areas. And we're going to use this today just to, again, put in a small bowl of water, and we're going to apply it with these swabs because she's so tiny. And we're also going to use this to clean her feet before we cut the nails, just to make sure that there's no risk of infection before we cut the nails. And we'll also show how you would clean the pad if the pad was cut in any way. Then there's a white powder, which I call cicatrin. It's got lots of different brand names as well, and you can apply that white powder to any wound, and it helps to stop the bleeding and it helps healing. It can be used on humans as well as animals. That's really useful. We don't have any of that here today, but we do have a caustic pencil. This could also be used to prevent bleeding. It almost burns the wound closed. So these are quite difficult to use with small wriggly animals like the tenrec. So you want to be very careful using this, but it helps prevent bleeding, especially if we have to leave the animals like unattended overnight. That might be something we would use to seal any nerve that might have been cut and was bleeding after a nail trim. So I'm going to get my gloves on, and then we're going to get the tenrec out, and we're going to look at cutting those nails. Sort of go over why we carry out first aid. It is to preserve life, to prevent deterioration of a condition, and to promote recovery. So first aid is really the first step before an animal might see a vet. So it's not instead of seeing a vet, okay? These are things that we will carry out, but 9 times out of 10 you probably refer to a vet for a follow-up as well. So Willow is back out of her enclosure. Darcy's here to help me. In this bowl here, I've just got a really small amount of the F10, and I'm just going to dab the swab in there. And we're just going to pretend that Willow, this is quite strong smelling, but we're going to pretend that she has a little cut on her nose caused by locust feeding. And we're just going to clean that nose area. So this is just an antiseptic. It's not going to hurt her. She doesn't like it because it's probably very cold. But this is one way that we would clean that wound area, obviously discarding that afterwards. As I said, we're going to cut her nails now, so we're just going to do the same thing but on her feet. So I'm going to try. And isolate a foot at a time. Getting that swab nice and wet and just cleaning over that foot area. Then, with these small scissors, these are special scissors for cutting nails. Should we swallow my, yeah, this way, yeah. So Darcy's wearing, because Willow does have spikes, so I'm just going to clean that foot. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if these scissors are going to be small enough to cut these nails, but we'll try. Do you know what would be better for this? Nail clippers. Yeah. And I'm just basically taking the ends of the nails off just to get her used to the sensation without anything negative happening. Because this is probably the first time she's had her nails cut. I think if I did this again, I'd use very small nail clippers rather than scissors. But we've taken the very ends off of those nails for her there. And the back ones are a bit longer, so they may be able to get easier to get to. And you can see she's retracting her paws and using those nails exactly what they're for. There we go. We're just taking the very edges off just to prevent them snagging on anything in her enclosure. Those ones were a little bit longer, so they're a bit easier to cut. And that thumb, almost like a thumbnail, is really long. And we've got it. Lovely. So that's quite stressful for her, but it's nice to get her used to being handled and those things happening before there actually is an injury. So it's just sort of good husbandry practice. Those will obviously all go in the bin.